An entitled Karen makes me feel bad for using food stamps, humiliating me in the grocery checkout line, as well as claiming that I'm the reason her card declined when I left. So I decided to get some revenge by telling this lady off in the parking lot and letting her know exactly how I feel, as well as how rude she actually was. And I've honestly never felt better about defending myself in the slightest. Here's what happened. So I was grocery shopping this morning as we were out of food at home, and I got my stuff that I came for and I was in line. Everything was fine until an entitled Karen showed up right behind me. She saw my cart full of groceries and she proceeded to give me a dirty look. So I know it was going to take me a bit to unload my cart onto the lane. Anywho, I was in the process of checking out and I pulled out my food stamps card. I was mid-swipe when this Karen had the audacity to say to me, "You should be ashamed of yourself for using food stamps. My money goes towards people like you who leech off the government. You are all a bunch of lazy people. If you weren't lazy, maybe you wouldn't need assistance." And when she said that, I was blown away. I turned around and said, "You know what? You should be ashamed of yourself for even suggesting that. You don't know my life. As for how to read the room, you completely failed in that area. How I live my life is none of your business." She proceeded to say a lot of other stuff and I just left. On my way out, I heard the cashier say that her card was declined and she needed another form of payment. I smiled and didn't feel bad at all. I was in the middle of loading my car up when this Karen yet again approached me, but this time she was loading groceries into her car. Now it should be noted that she was on her phone yelling into it, saying something like, "The man who used food stamps should be ashamed, and my card declined because it was his fault." But I just looked at her and I said, "No, it was not my fault." She then looked at me, but I just ignored her. She then looked at my car, which is a 2007 Honda, and she said to me, "You don't have money for groceries, but you can have a nice car? That doesn't make any sense." I then looked at her car, which is a nice Cadillac, and I said to her, "Well, I take care of my car, that's why it looks nice." After that, I just continued from there, and I left off from the store by basically saying, "You had no right to say the things you did towards me just because you didn't like that my cart was full and that I was using food stamps to pay. So go take your rude assumptions and shove them somewhere else. Good day to you." I then slammed the door of my car and then I left, and honestly, I don't feel bad in the slightest. Wow, that entitled Karen was completely out of line. Like seriously, food stamps and other welfare-based services are there to help people out who really need it. And I'm willing to bet that the original poster in this story is an honest person and they're not just using the government to get food stamps in some kind of way. Like it really does seem that they actually need this very badly, and their reasons are also incredibly private. Like they don't have to go around and announce their story to everybody around them. They just want to get their groceries and get out of there just like anybody else. And I also just love the karma that came into play right when the original poster left the store. Like this Karen's card declines right after this original poster leaves, and that's right after her being like, "Oh my god, my money goes towards people like you." But then her card gets declined, so it's like, well, what's your money going towards? It's clearly not on your card, lady. So honestly, to the original poster, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that, but also I think you handled it incredibly well. And I also don't think there's anything wrong with the way he reacted. In my opinion, I think it's very important to stand up for yourself and defend your own name, especially against somebody who clearly just wants to put you down. Like standing up for yourself in that way, in my opinion, does not make you a bad person, and it definitely doesn't make you rude, because at the end of the day, this entitled Karen started all of this. And if she had just kept her mouth shut, then everybody could have walked away from this situation a little bit better. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling another dad that his kids are weird because they're homeschooled? Because right now he is really upset, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So we had this family move across the street who coincidentally has boys the same age as mine. They're 14, 10, and 6 years old. Unfortunately, the kids are homeschooled, so my kids wouldn't be able to find them into the social fold. I arranged a play date last weekend for the 14-year-olds to hang out, and my son was clearly uncomfortable with the other kid. The other kid said he wasn't allowed to play video games or eat anything that wasn't organic. Now, I'm a pretty involved dad, but even that was odd. Basically, this kid wanted to teach my son about his trumpet and talk about Legos. It was like watching my 14-year-old try to play with a 10-year-old. After a few hours, the other kid left, and my son quickly went to his friend's house. I saw this kid's dad, and he asked me if everything was good between the boys. I said I assume so, and he said his son asked if he wanted to hang out on Super Bowl Sunday, and my son said no, as he was having friends over. He asked if he could come over, and my son said no. I asked my son, and he said the other kid was weird and made him feel uncomfortable, and I thought to myself, okay, fair enough. So I went back to the dad and asked if his kids have friends outside of the family. He asked why, and I said that they're not social. I'm not trying to be mean, but they don't know how to interact with other kids. He said they were very mature for their age, but I said, dude, you comb your 14-year-old son's hair. Like, I can't force my kid to be friends with your kid because he's so unlike other boys his age. He then said, are you saying my son is weird because he's homeschooled? And I said, yeah. I'm not a perfect dad and neither are my kids. I'm just saying that your kid is oblivious on what other kids his age like. He can hang out with my 10-year-old if he likes. He then said that I was a terrible neighbor and I just said whatever. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Yeah, you're definitely the jerk in this situation. Just because somebody's homeschooled doesn't mean that they're gonna be automatically awkward. And for you to blame this kid's awkwardness on him being homeschooled is really weird. Like, I have plenty of friends who have been homeschooled and they are just as normal as anybody else. And I've also had friends who were like going to public schools themselves and they were some of the biggest weirdos on planet Earth. Like, how you received an education is not a reflection of your personality. Like, maybe this is a case where the homeschooled kid is just kind of awkward and that's literally all there is to it. And the fact that he plays his trumpet and plays with Legos is not that big of a deal as a 14-year-old. So yes, to the original poster, I absolutely think you're a jerk. The way you handled this was incredibly rude, and I don't blame your neighbor for getting upset. My husband doesn't want to contribute any more money to our household, choosing to instead stay home and play video games while barely making $16,000 a year. And I'm now at my wit's end and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so just to clarify, this is a throwaway account because my husband follows my main one. My husband is 30 years old and I'm 31 years old, and we are hitting a rough spot right now. I make about $45,000 a year in my job and he makes about $16,000. If this was his dream job, I could totally be okay with that, but it isn't. It's just an awful job with awful pay. I hate my job and desperately want to change out of my career, but I'm currently stuck because my parents are sick and I have to stay in the area to take care of them. I live in a very rural area with very little opportunity for my degree. He does not have a college education. He doesn't really want a college education, and he has no idea what he really wants to do except play video games when he's home. I tried to ask him to contribute more in the household and he just blows up on me. He knows that I have a really good amount of money saved up from before we were married, so he says that we're fine. Once my parents are gone, I want to leave this nightmare and buy a house, and I would like a mortgage that isn't too crazy, so I want to put back as much as possible to save as much money as we can. He says that I'm too focused on money, and he gets really upset every time I ask him to look into another job that at least offers benefits so that I can maybe look for one that doesn't. He refuses and has brought up divorce many times, and I also think that the divorce comment comes from the fact that we haven't spent quality time together in literal months, if you know what I mean. I am very passionate about that, and he always did too until about 2 years ago when he got on antidepressants. He's never been physically awful to me, but he is volatile when approached with what I consider reasonable solutions to lighten my load. For example, if I ask him if he could do slightly more work around the house, it will only result in him getting angry and telling me he needs a list if he's going to do something. I mean, he will sweep and dry the dishes, but usually only once I prompt him to do it. But if I also make a list for him, he'll do all of it wrong. I'm just so tired all of the time. My job is mentally draining. Taking care of my parents is a chore, and I feel like he makes more of a mess than he helps with. He is also expensive to live with. He has no concept of a budget because we are just so much better off than so many people. And sure, that might be true, but I want security. If something happens to me, he is screwed after a year or two tops. Plus, I don't want to bring this up, but that is all my money that I saved from before. And together, we've added about $20,000 since we got married about 4 years ago. I just don't know what to do. He really is wonderful to be around and treats me well 80% of the time. He makes dinner all the time, and I've never been around someone that I don't feel exhausted after being with outside of my parents. So it was incredible what I found him. He doesn't want to go to couples therapy, so I don't know how to fix this. So specifically, what can I do to make this better? Should I just continue to contribute more and let him do his own thing? Is there a way to bring it up that doesn't make it feel like he's emasculated? What should I do? Honestly, the fact that this guy brought up divorce all because he wanted to do more around the house is a massive red flag in my opinion. This guy is 30 years old. $16,000 a year at 30 is not doing that well, and it really does sound like he sees your income and whatever money you saved up as something that he can net as well. Like, this guy really does sound incredibly lazy and very rude, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel very frustrated with the way this guy is acting. He could very easily get to work and make a lot more money than that, but it sounds like he's really just kind of spoiled on what's going on in his life, and he sees your money as his money, and that is seriously not okay. So truly, with whatever you decide to do, I think it's really important for some change to happen, because honestly, at this rate, it really seems like you're going to be the one and only breadwinner of this family. My girlfriend broke up with me because she has realized that she's a lesbian, and the weirdest part about this is that this is not the first time this has happened to a former girlfriend, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been dating this girl for just about 2 months. We were head over heels in love with each other. I gave her everything I could, and she gave it right back as well. We did everything from weekly date nights to cooking meals together, and even had a few trips later in the year planned with each other that we were both super excited for. I had known that she was queer going into the relationship, and this doesn't bother me at all, as I'm already surrounded surrounded by many queer people in my life, and she had even met many of my friends and loved spending time with me and them. Well, last night while we were on the phone, I could tell something was off. She wasn't her normal peppy self and seemed like something really was bothering her. I didn't think anything was wrong as I'd been sick that day and the day before, and she had been texting me throughout to make sure I was feeling well and taking care of myself and all that other stuff. Normally when she would be upset, she would immediately tell me what was wrong, as she was pretty open and a very honest person. Well, finally she opened up and told me that she wasn't ready to be in a committed relationship and she needed time alone to work on herself. I asked her if anything specific had made her feel that way, as just the day prior she was gushing to me about how much she loved me and wanted to be with me for a long time. She eventually told me that a coworker had asked her if she was sure that she wasn't a lesbian, and that question was eating away at her, and she wasn't sure if she was into men anymore, and that it was unfair to me to keep leading me on, and it was better to end the relationship early than to keep letting it drag on. Of course, this broke my heart because I was really truly happy and I was in love with her. Obviously, all of this is very fluid, and I can't be mad at her for wanting to be alone to figure things out by herself, but the sudden end of what I thought was going to be a long and happy relationship really hurts. Now, 7 months prior, my ex of 2 years had ended things with me the same way. Both of them reiterated that it was not because of me and that I was actually the sweetest guy that both of them had ever met. A short-term fling in college had also ended the same way, so I'm just starting to wonder, has anyone else had similar experiences to this? I'm the only person in my friend circle to have had a relationship end this way, and on top of that, having multiple end this way just feels so wild to me. What should I do? So I really believe that this is just a coincidence, and I think it's really important for you to realize that this is not about you. I know you might think there's some kind of pattern here, or like maybe there is something that you're doing that you don't know about, but I really think this is just one of those situations where like lightning has struck twice, and it's not indicative of anything that you have or have not done in these relationships. And I think the best evidence of that is the fact that these girls have said, hey, you are really nice and you're awesome, and they were at least kind enough to cut things off when they did understand certain things about themselves. So I really wouldn't be too hard on yourself. This really does seem like a freak incident, and I don't think this is any reason for you to beat yourself up. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for finally making a comeback at my boyfriend's repeated jokes about my appearance? Because right now he is very upset, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. So last night my boyfriend and I were in a playful mood and fake fighting, all while laughing, and so before bed I came to his place so we could spend some time together, as we are both full-time university students and he works as well. So we use this time to catch up, cuddle, work on our assignments near each other, and just have dinner together and so on. Anyways, I get the giggles and I'm giddy, and my boyfriend's playing along but asked me to get along and come with him to brush his teeth as well as get ready for bed. We were both enjoying each other as far as I could tell, and I make jokes and follow him whilst continuing to be a bit silly and giggly. We get into it playfully as we are brushing our teeth, and he may have joked about having to trim his beard, so I grabbed his face. I wouldn't say it was too hard at all, because I meant to pat his overgrown beard and did so while we both laughed it off. Well, apparently it was a bit too excited to grab, because his first instinct was to grunt and squeal and slap one side of my face a bit too hard, but didn't explain, but was kind of frustrated. And this is also important because this man has a temper. Now, I was visibly shocked, and I smiled and said, I don't reckon it was that hard. He suggested that it was, and I said if it was, I didn't mean it like that. Granted, I was giddy, and I could have been more aggressive than intended, but he could just say so next time. I was distraught, but the atmosphere was still light. He responds by flicking his wet toothbrush at me and spraying me with a splash of water, and at this point, I'm appalled. But we joke about it, and I ask him to step away from me so I can wash my face first. He doesn't apologize, but it all ends fine, and we head to bed. So sure, maybe I was being a little bit too giggly and overreacted with a face grab thing, which is fine, but that's at least one argument that I can avoid. We head to bed, and my giggle was clearly contagious. I'm scrolling on my phone, waiting for him to head to bed, and he's making all these jokes back and forth. I'm a bit on guard from the situation, but I just want some alone time on my phone before bed. Then my boyfriend makes a comment that's been on repeat about me having a mustache, and that is a touchy subject for a female. I have asked him repeatedly to stop teasing me, and if it is a real concern, to please just tell me, as no lady wants to run around with a stash that she very clearly doesn't want there. Obviously, he ignores me and keeps bringing it up in banter and assuring me that I do not actually have a mustache, but has never respected my request to stop teasing me and bringing it up in banter or even half-serious banter. Needless to say, it definitely struck a chord, and it ruffled a feather or two as he cracked himself up as I sat there with my mouth open. So at this point, I'm annoyed, and I have to say something. Now, I know it's a touchy subject for men and not something to joke about, but my boyfriend crossed a line. So I said to him, well, if nothing's off limits for you, then nothing's off limits. And then I made a comment about his performance in certain aspects of our lives, if you know what I mean. Well, when I said that, he immediately turned on his side away from me and wouldn't talk to me, except to snap at a reel accidentally going off, and would not let me hug him when I finally went to sleep. He physically and aggressively pushed my arm away and off of him. He is much stronger than I am, and when he makes me upset, he usually pulls me in for a cuddle against my will, even if I ask him not to and I try to pull away. Well, fast forward and he left this morning before I woke up, and I have not heard from him all day. I do regret the comment, but I'm reluctant to reach out because I don't want him to think that what he said was okay. So how long can he keep ignoring and disrespecting me while acting like every time he makes a comment about my physical appearance, it is somehow the funniest comment you could ever make? I'm not trying to justify my comment, and I don't want him to think that only he has the right to say whatever he wants about me, or even about my appearance, even after asking him not to on multiple occasions. I also don't mean to come off as incredibly revengeful, but I was just sick and tired of this specific comment especially. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? This is a classic case of you can dish it, but you cannot take it. This guy's making fun of you about something that you do not like, and when you turn the tables, oh, suddenly you crossed the line. But it's like, oh, okay, but what about the fact that you're saying she's got a mustache? Like, I'm pretty sure that crossed the line like several moments back. So in my opinion, I don't think of the jerk in this scenario. I think that your boyfriend got a serious taste of his own medicine, and if he's offended by that, then maybe he knows just a little bit about the way you feel. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law that I make way too much money at my job to suddenly quit it just to become a stay-at-home mom? Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm a 31-year-old female, and I'm a manager for cybersecurity engineering for a big tech company. My husband is an internal medicine specialist, and I make over $200,000 a year, and he recently started making his full salary at around $400,000 a year. We had our first child around 2 years ago, and I'm pregnant with our second. My family is pretty open-minded about it, but my husband's family are very old-fashioned, and since we are Japanese, there is a consensus from them that women who are married with children should not be working. My husband is very lucky as he has less loans than other doctors, just over $130,000, but that's because his family paid a lot of it off already. So I've been getting hints from them that I should be a stay-at-home mom and leave the money making to my husband. I don't want to leave my job, and my company is relatively understanding. I got 6 months off of work for my first child and was able to keep my current position. The male members of my team are also able to take paternity leave, so I don't see why I would have to leave my job. I also paid most of the bills while my husband wasn't making much as a resident. My aunt was a stay-at-home mom, and to make more income in her retirement, she babysits my son. She's also going to be looking after my youngest child when my maternity leave ends. I've also been guilted by other moms, especially my husband's co-workers' wives, since most of them who are also not doctors become stay-at-home moms. But I don't see why I need to. My husband and I outsource all of our cleaning, our grocery delivery, our lawn maintenance, so honestly, all we do is cook. Almost all of our time at home is spending time together as a family, and apart from the rare occasion we both work 9 to 10 hours a day, with me working a bit less as I don't have to commute. Even then, we still have a lot more than if I were a stay-at-home mom. But my mother-in-law has commented how it's not right that I outsource these things because a mother shows her love by cleaning after her kids and her husband. My mother-in-law recently came over, and while eating dinner, she said the food was great and complimented me, and I said that my husband made the food. And when I said that, she was shocked. She said it wasn't right that my husband had to do any work after his long shift. I then got annoyed and said that I was working longer than him today, and she said, well then you should just quit so you don't have to. I then got mad, and I told her I save over $12,000 a month after paying to outsource, so I didn't have any interest in doing it anyways. And with that money, we can send our children to top schools and have undergrad and possible graduate school paid for. So it's ridiculous to expect me to quit just because she has an old-fashioned idea that women need to be on their knees scrubbing away. My mother-in-law was offended, but my husband told her it's already been settled and I'm going to still be working. But everybody always tells me that I'm a bad mom if I don't quit my job, and it all has me really worn down at this point. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk. Your mother-in-law's just a busybody. She thinks that just because she quit her job to be a stay-at-home mom somehow means that you automatically have to do that yourself. And if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't want to quit either. You have a very successful job, you earn a lot of money, as does your husband, and you're clearly doing really well figuring things out between the two of you. So like, why would you quit? Just so you can stay at home and not work that high-paying job? It's not like you're not taking care of your family. You clearly have it worked out between you and your husband. And honestly, that's like the only person who has a say in anything that happens in that house. So no, of course you're not a jerk. Your mother-in-law's being really weird, and if I was in your shoes, I would just try to ignore her. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.